In the previous module, we said that when a phone-up calls, they are most probably looking for information. And we said that the sales psychology we will employ throughout the phone call as the best way for them to get what they want is by using the polite, assumptive sales psychology. We also said that there are two basic strategies that, if applied using an assumptive approach, are the most effective in bringing phone-ups through the door. Number one, leading the conversation to the point of the appointment, and number two, closing for the appointment. In this module, we want to discuss this second strategy of closing for the appointment. At this point, we, through question acknowledge question approach, have led the prospect to the point at which we will close for the appointment in an assumptive way. Now let's speak in general terms for just a minute. Your objective is to set an appointment with the phone-up so that they can see in person whatever it is they want to see, or at least in person get their curiosity satisfied. And although you may have to answer some questions about the products, you don't want to deliver any kind of major product presentation because you have something the prospect wants. You have it, or you have the information about it they want. This leads us directly to the closing for the appointment question. You've been talking with a phone-up for a minute or two, let's say. You are now ready to ask this prospect for an appointment, and there are a number of different ways to do it. The following are 4 examples of closing questions that could be used to ask the prospect for the appointment. Number 1, would you like to see trial 1? Number 2, we work by appointment. When may I set one up for you? Or number 3, I'm available at 3, or would 5 be better? And number 4, I'd like to show you one. Can you make it this afternoon? Now, 4 reasonably good closing questions, right? But let's invest just a minute or two to analyze them for their weaknesses. Question number 1 requires only a yes or no answer. Everybody knows that if you ask a prospect a yes or no question, there's probably a 50-50 chance they'll say no. It's not assumptive. If, at the appropriate moment, you use closing question number 2 and say, we work by appointment. When may I set one for you? Well, for some callers, this is not too motivating. Most of them did not call to see you. They called to see or learn more about it. This closing question is assumptive, but this close means that they have to go through you to get what they want. To the prospect, this means that they get something, but they must give up something too. We want what they give up to be at an emotionally acceptable level. I mean, nobody wants to talk to a salesperson, but they will sometimes do that in order to get what they want. Now, this logic also means that we want to avoid using closing questions number 3 and number 4. I'm available at 3, or would 5 be better? Or, I'd like to show you one. Can you make it this afternoon? We suggest that you stay away from, I'd like to show it to you this afternoon. He might think, yeah, I'll bet you would, pal. You'd probably even try to sell it to me, wouldn't you? Remember, when he called, he did not say he wanted to meet with a salesperson. He or she said that they wanted information about the product. Just arrange for them to get what they want in the best possible way by looking at the boat, pictures, or specs, and don't remind the prospect that you'll be there. Now, let's turn our attention to what we believe are the 3 characteristics of a great closing question. Number 1, it's an assumptive question, meaning it usually leads the prospect in a specific direction. Number 2, any answer to the question commits the prospect. Now, this, of course, doesn't mean that the prospect has to answer the question. It only means that if they do answer the question, any answer moves him or her toward more of a commitment. And number 3, the question can only be answered in a positive way. Now, let's talk about an example of an appointment setting question that meets these 3 criteria. What would happen if at the appropriate moment you asked, when would you like to see that model or take it for a test drive? Number 1, it is an assumptive question. It is not a yes or no question. It does not ask if the prospect wants to see the product. It assumes that the prospect does and only asks when. Number 2, it commits the prospect if he or she answers the question asked. It refers only to what the prospect gets. He gets to try out the product, and it doesn't remind him or her of what they give up, which is talking to you. Number 3, it does not invite a negative response, and it is polite. In summary, when would you like to see that model and take it for a test drive? Meets all 3 requirements of a good closing question. It's low-key, polite, and no matter how many different people ask it, it always sounds good. This, in fact, is the very best first closing question for all your phone-ups. See you next module.